Russia and Ukraine are assessing the damage after the two exchanged a barrage of attacks overnight.
In Ukraine, where Russian troops continue to bombard several cities in southern and eastern Ukraine.
October 2nd, 2025. The night Ukraine's gas grid turned into a battlefield. The first sign wasn't sirens. It was a distant growl, hundreds of engines slicing through the cold air over Kharkiv and Poltava. Radar screens flickered. Operators blinked. Then came the flood. Wave after wave of incoming signals. Not aircraft, not artillery, a sky full of drones, each carrying a warhead meant for Ukraine's energy lifeline, Naftogaz. What followed wasn't just another strike. It was a coordinated attempt to shut down a nation's winter before it began. Weeks before the night of chaos had already escalated its campaign against Russia's energy lifeline, launching a barrage of drone assaults that gutted refineries and pipelines across the vast Russian hinterland, which choked Moscow's war chest by curbing oil exports and revenues. For the GRU planners in Moscow, the asymmetry demanded balance, a surgical riposte to reclaim the initiative and even the ledger. Russian planners were already hunched over maps and screens, connecting dots that most people don't even notice. Their goal was simple on paper: shut down Ukraine's gas flow before winter arrived. Every compressor, pipeline junction, wellhead, and substation at Naftogaz was logged, tagged, and timed. Cosmos satellites scanned from orbit. Orlan 10 drones circled for hours, filling in the gaps. SIGINT teams listened to chatter near Kharkiv and Poltava, picking up which shifts were light on patrol, which valves were open, which compressors had been patched with duct tape. Even human sources in occupied zones gave the tiny details that machines can't see: gate codes, service schedules, when the lights were out. Meanwhile, the tools of destruction were moving into place. Mobile Iskander launchers rolled into Belgorod and Kursk. Shahed 136 drones were stacked in Crimea and Donetsk, ready to go. Krasuka 4 electronic warfare units hummed quietly, set to blind Ukrainian radars just enough to tilt the odds. The plan was almost elegant in its cruelty. Hit key points, cause chain reactions, choke gas production, force Ukraine to import, and make winter a little colder, a little darker. Every meter of pipeline, every transformer, every control building was mapped for maximum effect, and the math promised a perfect storm of disruption. The planners timed everything to the weather, to human schedules, to repair crews' routines. They didn't want fireworks. They wanted systemic collapse. But they packed the fireworks in anyway, just in case. Then the night came. At 10 p.m., the first wave lifted off. 60 to 78 Shahed 136 drones, slow, buzzing little death machines, slipped across three directions: south from Crimea, east from Donetsk, and north through Belarus. They hugged the ground at 50 to 100 meters, engines whining like distant chainsaws, each carrying a 50 to 100 kilo warhead. Guidance came from inertial systems and GLONASS satellites. They weren't fast, they weren't fancy, but they were relentless. Ukraine scrambled everything it had. Kolchuga-M radars pinged. S-300s and NASAMS cued missiles. Patriots braced for high-altitude targets. J-PARD autocannons spun up. Manpads teams popped up in the countryside. Interceptors lit up the sky. By 11 p.m., smoke and tracers were streaking across the night. Roughly 300 drones would eventually be shot down. But that was the plan. The swarm wasn't meant to win fights itself. It was there to burn missiles, overload radars, and confuse crews. Some drones hit pipelines, some just forced the defenders to waste every last round. While Ukraine's batteries were busy, the path was clearing for the real strike to come. The defenders scored victories, but magazines were thinning, radars were blinking, and reaction times stretched. The swarm had done its job. It opened the door. And behind that door, bigger, faster, deadlier weapons were already on the move. At 11:30 p.m., the night went supersonic. 35 missiles lit the sky like angry comets. Iskander-M ballistic rockets screaming at Mach 7, Iskander-K cruise missiles threading tree lines at 50 meters, and K-59 Mk TOWs launched from Su-34s with TV seekers locked on like hawks. Launchers in Belgorod and Kursk flared in sequence. The timing looked surgical. The effect was brutal. Iskander-Ms arrived almost before anyone could say, "Watch out!" punching 700 kilos warheads into hardened compressor sheds. Impact signatures were textbook: overpressure, shrapnel rain. Control rooms gone from humming to dead in a heartbeat. Seconds later, Iskander-Ks slid in low and slow, hugging terrain to vanish under radar skirts and severing pipelines with warhead precision. K-59 Mk2 finished the choreography, cruising in from safe standoff, eyes feeding back imagery while their seekers guided the final strike. The tactic was clear: saturation and precision in one pass. Salvos hit space to exploit reload cycles. Defenders who had spent missiles on earlier Shahed waves found their magazines lighter and their queues longer. Ukrainian crews managed to intercept roughly 17 missiles, a handful of heroic hits among many launches, but hypersonic Iskanders shrugged off most countermeasures. The blast pattern left predictable but catastrophic results. Gas wells turned into fire pillars, compressors mangled into molten puzzles, pipelines ruptured and pumping flame. Substations tripped in sequence as shockwaves and overpressure fried electronics, dragging whole control domains into blackout. Somewhere between the roar and the aftershock, the night sky painted itself orange and black, and the infrastructure map was rearranged by holes. There was a nasty elegance to it, hardware and timing paired to convert targets into cascading failures. Air defenses burned through inventory and mental bandwidth while the missiles delivered targeted kinetic surgery. The strikes were not noisy for drama, they were loud because they needed to be. After the barrage, the horizon smoked, alarms kept cycling, and central monitoring rooms read red. Weapons had spoken, and the grid answered with silence. By 2 a.m., the missile fusillade ended, but the battlefield kept breathing fire. Surviving Shahed drones circled like vultures, loitering for secondary damage, harassing response teams and igniting fresh blazes. Some carried Cometa-M anti-radar seekers, sniffing out sensors and punching holes in what remained of surveillance. On the Russian flank, Krasika 4 jammers smeared radar returns by up to 30%, turning clear tracks into ghosting squiggles and giving the follow-on waves a breather. Dawn did the accounting. 15 Naftogaz nodes reported critical damage. Compressors crippled, processing lines mangled, storage sites scarred. Repair crews found pipelines split open and control cabinets melted into unreadable lumps. A nearby farm became collateral inferno. Livestock and outbuildings gone, smoke stacking into a kilometer-wide column. More than 200 emergency responders raced in, firefighting foam and welding torches in hand, sealing ruptures, cooling vents, and trying to stop the cascade of pressure trips that threatened even healthier systems. It was salvage work against a clock and cold air. The economic tally was ugly. Repair bills floating in the $100 to $300 million range, and a gas deficit pushed towards 6 billion cubic meters. Beyond money, the attack exposed the neat fact that electrical grids and pipelines are compositionally fragile, hit the right node, and things fail downstream without manners. Operationally, Ukraine redistributed NASAMS and Jeopard units into the hardest hit sectors, hunted for remaining loiterers, and accelerated counter-drone patrols. By 4 a.m., the last Shahed drones disappeared into smoke-choked skies, leaving sirens and flames to mark the night's toll. The barrage, 35 missiles, 60 drones, didn't kill facility crews, but it shredded lives on the edges. Kharkiv's outskirts felt the first hit. At 11:45, an Iskander-M 700-kilo warhead slammed into a gas cluster, rupturing a wellhead. A fireball shot 200 meters into the night. Debris rained onto a nearby farm. 13,000 pigs were instantly incinerated. 2 farmhands caught in the blast were shredded by flying metal, one with embedded fragments, the other losing a leg. They stumbled out, bloodied and coughing smoke, airlifted to Kharkiv hospitals as surgeons worked through the dawn. Poltava followed. An Iskander-K cruise missile struck a compressor station at 12:30. The 480-kilo warhead sent a shockwave across the perimeter. 3 Naftogaz technicians on night patrol were hurled 20 meters, concussions and fractures rattling their bodies. Krasika 4 jamming slowed GPS and medevac response, leaving them trapped amid twisted concrete and debris until emergency crews could pull them clear. All three stabilized in intensive care within hours. Across 6 regions, collateral injuries totaled 7, 5 civilians, farmhands, and technicians, and 2 from downed Shahed fragments. A villager in Poltava was grazed by a 50-kilo fusillade piece. A responder suffered smoke inhalation while dousing secondary fires. Ukraine's Air Force neutralized 303 drones and 17 missiles, but every intercepted weapon shredded the night air into shards, turning defenses into danger zones. By sunrise, 250 emergency responders battled wellhead blazes and ruptured pipelines. Injuries traced a map of hypersonic burns, rotor lacerations, and concussive trauma. Naftogaz CEO Serhiy Koretsyaky toured the devastation, calling it terror etched in civilian bone. The farm owner buried his herd, muttering about missiles hunting pigs before people. No direct deaths at facilities, but the scars, burns, and chaos left a human imprint on a night defined by drones, missiles, and raw kinetic fury. So, as the flames dimmed over Kharkiv's gas fields, tension hung in the air. Russia demonstrated reach and precision. Ukraine held, patching lines and tending the wounded under relentless pressure. Pipelines, substations, and drones. The battlefield has changed, and energy became a weapon. What do you call a night when power turns into peril? Drop your thoughts below, and subscribe for more frontline breakdowns of tactics and firepower.